Hi everybody, welcome back to Garden Obsessed. It is the end of October and believe it or not, I am starting to plan my 2023 garden. There are lots of online applications that you can use to do this, but I am an old school paper and pencil girl. This paper is graph paper that I got on Amazon. It's 11 by 17 and by far this is my favorite for planting on my gardens. And I bought this, I think this is the 5th year I've had it to plan my garden, so I've had it for about 5 years. It originally came with 2 pads and I still have tons on both. This is like my garden from last year. And I like to use pencil because I erase and replant and change my mind, and that makes it easy. I don't have to redo a whole new map. I don't care if my lines are straight. I just freehanded these. So these are my beds. And just for perspective, I'll go over how big everything is. So these 4 at the back, and this is north, so this is the east side of the garden. I have 4 beds here that are 4 feet by 8 feet. Between all of my beds is 2 feet, and if I were to redesign this again, I think 3 feet is better. 2 feet is pretty narrow sometimes. I can get a wheelbarrow through. But it's hard for us to mow the lawn. Between the lawnmower fits through some and not others. So, you know, it's not exact. We did our best to keep things in line, but things have shifted and moved a little bit. And 3 feet would have been ideal. It's also hard to get the lawnmower like turned around some of these corners and things. So for the most part, a couple of these long runs get mowed and the rest of it gets whippersnipped. So often the garden's a mess because neither one of us likes to do that. So I start just by outlining these beds. So these are the 4 by 8 beds. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 4 by 4 beds. These are 4 by 7. This is a 3 by 3 because it's one of the original beds that my dad built with just some scrap lumber that he had. Eventually I would like to make this one a 4 by 4 as well, just to make everything a little more uniform. And these 2 here are 2 4 by 10s. So for overall dimensions, the garden is essentially 26 feet by 22 feet. And that gives me about 340 square feet of growing space in the raised beds. So once I have my outlines drawn, I am going to add structures. So I have a trellis here. I'm just referencing my old map to kind of locate where I had these things. So this is just a little black garden trellis that I usually grow sweet peas on. Next I have some arched trellises here and arched trellises here. I always mark it in. There's a big giant maple right here. And that's it for structures that are currently in the garden. Lola's gonna help, so this should be fun. Now, the next thing that I wanna do is mark off the things that are perennial and or things that I have planted for next year. So pretty much that's gonna just be garlic. But this bed here is Mary Washington, asparagus, and Kent strawberries. And I like to do this because it helps me plan when I start my seed starting later in spring. I'll know how much space I have to work with. So I like to mark off the things, and it also helps me remember year to year what varieties of things I have that are perennial. The other thing we have right now, this bed here, I have divided in half, and it's daffodils on this half, and it's walking onions on this side. This bed here also has some perennials, and eventually I want to set up an herb garden somewhere else in the yard. And a lot of the things that are currently here, there's some perennial things in this bed as well, will be transplanted out. I would like this, with the exception of this bed, I would like this to mostly be an annual garden, but it's easy to just plunk things in here and then they get left. So I need to make a space next year, or maybe this fall, for some of these things to go. So there is a sage plant here. There is a lavender plant here. A clump of chives here. Another lavender. And a rose bush here. There's dill that self-seeds here. So I'm just kind of give it a space to reseed next year. And there are also 2 kale plants that will likely overwinter, and I'll be able to collect seed from. These are Premier kale. So that's that bed. So you can see already there are 3 beds that are unavailable to me, and there's actually this one as well. So, oh, and actually most of this one too. So there's a giant comfrey plant here. I have 2 chive plants here and a couple of garlic chives here. And there's a hascap that's getting larger by the year. This needs its own space in the yard. This is definitely going to get transplanted in the spring. So there's not much space here left. Now, this bed has a few different things going on, and this is why I like to use pencil, because actually it's more space than what I just drew here. Almost half of this bed is delphiniums currently. So we'll go about here. I want to add a little garden space around our shed, and I plan to transplant these delphiniums over there. We also have, in this whole section, there's geum, there's some yarrow, some echinacea, and there's a daisy, and I think there might be a few other things, but this is mostly perennial flowers that are currently residing in this bed. So all of these things need to be moved. The other thing that I need to get marked down here is the garlic that I have planted this year. Okay, I just had to double check exactly how many garlic and things that I planted. So this bed is going to be mostly garlic. I'm almost right up to where my trellis is. There's a little bit of space so I can plant something on the trellis. And I have one row here that's separate from the rest. All of this is 7 rows of 15 garlics. So 7 by 15 music garlic. So that's 105 bulbs. In this row here, I have 8 purple stripe. And I did plant 2 elephant garlic over here. Just 2. Now, I still have my German white garlic to plant. I will likely plant it here, I am thinking. I'm not going to mark it in yet, but I think this is where I will plant the German white garlic. The other thing that I'm going to write is that this was planted on October 15th. I like to do that because then I know, like, I don't get all of, I tend not to get all of my garlic planted at the same time, and it helps me narrow down where the best window is for me. The other reason I like to do this way is I have a record that I can look up for the past 5 years of where I had things planted. And for the most part, you know, I can keep like a 3-year record kind of in my brain, but if for any reason I need to go back further, I can. So I had garlic planted here, here, and here last year. So I won't plant garlic in any of these 3 beds for the next couple years. It's going here and here this year. So next year, probably once I get these things out, that will be a great bed. If I get these things transplanted, that will be a great bed. An area in any of these will be a great bed. And then I can cycle through and start planting it where I've planted it before again. Okay, I also notice I have forgotten that there are perennials in this bed as well. Most of this is Rudbeckia. And there are a few plants of Orangium right here. So that will kind of limit, and actually it's not quite that far. A little. Draw a line here so I don't forget where my trellises start and stop here. So once I have the garden to this place, I can start adding in things where I know I want to plant them. So the last couple years I've had sweet peas on this trellis and I really like them there. So sweet peas are gonna go back here. The other thing I am probably gonna do again that I did last year is I planted tulips back here. I have about 100 that I want to plant, and they're just cheap tulips that I pull the bulbs and everything and just use as cut flowers in the spring. Eventually, I want a flower bed so the flowers don't take up so much room out of our home vegetable garden. But while we have the community garden, I don't mind having a few beds taken up with flowers because we can grow so many vegetables there. Because we have that community garden, I'm also going to be doing this for that plot, and a lot of the things that typically take up space here are going there. Tomatoes and peppers did amazingly well there, and so did potatoes. I don't plan to plant any potatoes at home, and only a few heritage tomatoes at home. I probably will also plant a few jalapenos and a few bell peppers at home because I like to be able to run out and grab a green pepper if I need one. But for the most part, most of those things, like all of the paste tomatoes and many of the determinate tomatoes that I grow, like the Scotia tomato, those are all going to go at the community garden, and the bulk of the peppers will be going to the community garden as well. Things that I want to plant at home are going to be things like spinach, lettuce, kale, things that we run out and grab throughout the season, and also anything that's high maintenance. So I plan to grow a few cabbages, a few broccoli, a few cauliflower. I'm also planning to do a row of those at the garden, but they are going to be netted both at home and at the garden to prevent cabbage worms. And also I'm thinking about netting potatoes at the garden as well to keep potato bugs off. I'll also grow some squash at home, and I will also grow some squash at the community garden. But I'm thinking most of the summer squash is going to be planted here at home because I'm home on a regular basis to check on it. There were a couple times this summer at the community garden where I couldn't be there, 1 to 2 weeks. There was a time I wasn't there for 3 weeks, and some of that stuff gets out of hand really quickly. So those high maintenance things are going to be planted here at home. So I think I'm going to plant tomatoes in this bed. It's one of the sunny beds. In this bed, I've also decided we might have, first we'll do this bed. This was going to be garlic, German white. I do like to have carrots at home. They were over here this year. And I do want to try growing corn again. So this is one of the sunniest beds, and I'll be able to give it a large chunk so that I should get good pollination of the kernels. So I think that's what I'll grow here. There is actually, I forgot, I planted a couple rows of asparagus up here. One was Jersey, and I'll have to look up the other one. I can't remember right now. 2 different kinds from Mary Washington. But down here is where I thought I would grow brassicas. Like my broccoli, my cabbage, cauliflower, and just a couple of each, not very many. So we're getting there. I want to grow also some beans at home, some bush beans, and also some peas. So I still have this bed available to me, as well as all of this trellis space, and this whole bed is available to me. I used to have my sunchokes here, but I found we weren't eating them, and they are spreading like crazy. So I've been digging them up slowly, and there's fewer and fewer, but if I put bush beans or peas back here, something that's going to be short season, then when I rip those plants out, it will give me another opportunity to dig out any stragglers. So I think for the most part, this bed is going to be peas and beans. and both would be bush types. And I'll put slash peppers here, because this is the only bed those things are gonna have available to them. Now, probably there will be pole beans and pole peas. And I also want to try to grow Kajari melons. I still have not successfully grown one to ripeness. So I think this whole side here, I'm devoting next year. Next year is the year we will have Kajari melons. And when I plant something on a trellis, those are gonna shade out this side. So this is a great spot to put something like spinach or lettuce or bok choy, those kinds of things. And maybe we'll put beans. I want some dry beans. Actually, I think all of the pole beans I'm gonna be growing, I'll grow dry beans, and these will be my green beans. I'm gonna put beans over here as well. Well, yeah, dry. And I'll put leafy greens here. And I'll do peas on this side. And those will probably be snow. And over here, these will be snap or shell. So, I won't bore you anymore. We only have a couple areas left to fill in, but this is what I'm doing. And I like to use a pencil because as the winter progresses, I will probably change my mind on a few things. I'm sure tomatoes will actually get more space than this because I love tomatoes. And maybe I'll change my mind about the corn, or I'll get out there planting my German white garlic and realize, even though I'm trying to cut back this year because we grew an awful lot this year, I think we grew 250 or 260 bulbs this year, and I found that, you know, that's more than we will use. But I always get out there and I'm like, oh, I just love garlic so much. I need more than that. So I wouldn't be surprised if I find another spot for some garlic. You just never know. Some things that I still would like to grow would be like beets and radishes. Those are things I can tuck into beds, or I could give them this space. There's a few little things like that, but for the most part, this will be my overall plan and subject to change. So I hope you found this useful. I'll give you a little closer up here before we go. Okay, so here's everything a little closer up. I don't worry about it being neat or anything like that. But I have found this has really helped to, one, rotate my crops, to fit in what I want to actually grow and focus what I want to actually grow. And it also helps me with how many starts of things that I need. So I hope you found this useful and not too boring. And if you do something similar, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And hope you all have a great day. And thank you for watching. See you next time.